This podcast is made possible by listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's February 3rd, 2026. On this date in 1986, President Ronald Reagan ordered the creation of a panel to investigate the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion. It was just a week after the nation watched in shock as a spacecraft blew up in the sky over Florida. A week after the entire crew, including the woman who was supposed to be the first teacher in space, died on live TV. A week of more questions and answers followed about what could have possibly gone so very wrong. It took about 6 months, but the Rogers Commission did figure it out. That July, the commission announced that a relatively tiny kind of seal called an O-ring had failed in the unusually cold weather that preceded the shuttle launch. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. When specific situations go pretty wrong in the U.S., our leaders create commissions. And that's where we are right now in Nashville. A week after the ice storm knocked power out to a record number of Nashville Electric Service customers, Mayor Freddie O'Connell is organizing a commission to determine where NES went wrong in its response. I'm sure you've heard a lot of the same stories I have. There are the people who discovered on their own that they had power back, but didn't hear word from the utility for another 2 days. Or the opposite, folks who got a confusing message that they thought meant the electricity was back on, only to go home to find their apartment was still cold and dark. The outage map seemed to be only partially accurate. There was exasperation with having to wait a week before hearing even ballpark estimates of how long it might take to end the outage. People who started the week expressing their appreciation for the line crews doing the work of putting things back to rights ended the week angry at the main office for communication problems. And it's really driven home just how important that communications aspect is, too. It's hard to hear nebulous statements from leaders saying just, "This will take a while," when you were literally in the dark, when you were trying to figure out what kind of alternate shelter you could afford, when extending that stay in a hotel a few days longer might mean you're not able to pay the rent on that home you're not currently in, when your insulin went bad in your fridge and you're not sure when you'll have a good spot to refrigerate a replacement dose because who knows what's going on with your power. It's pretty hard to determine your next steps. Clear communication from a utility in a situation like this makes a huge difference in people's ability to manage their own personal disaster response. But last week, far too many Nashvillians felt left in the dark, both literal and metaphoric dark. On top of that, the message from Mayor O'Connell after his meeting with NES leaders on Sunday is concerning on a different level. The mayor indicated that the utility didn't just fail in its communication with the community at large. He indicated they hadn't been forthcoming with him either. He didn't share specifics, but the mayor said he learned things a week after the outages began that NES should have been sharing with him from the start. And if he'd known those details, the mayor said he would have been telling all of us different things from the start of the storm. As it was, by the time NES laid it all out for him, O'Connell said it was too late for Metro to do anything on the city government end that could make a difference in speeding things up. Now, he didn't explicitly say that Metro could have done more things to help earlier in the week if they'd been brought into the loop, but that seemed to be the implication. Now, this was an outage of incredible size. It was the biggest one NES has ever had to fix. To some extent, it is inevitable that these remarkably large disasters will uncover issues. Things that are usually small blips that don't get noticed get blown up to much bigger proportions, and some of that is to be expected. What you don't expect is the scale of these communications problems from NES. O'Connell is giving his commission 6 months to get to the bottom of just what went wrong last week. In just a few minutes, one side effect of the ice storm that's actually pretty nice. Locals taking over from tourists in the honky-tonks. That's coming up after the newscast.
You've got a lot of things to keep track of. Work schedules, family activities, the ever-growing list of things you need to remember to do. Updating the credit card or banking information for your sustaining membership may have slipped your mind. With just 2 minutes of your time, you can update your payment information and check one more thing off your list. Peace of mind for you, funding for your public radio station. Go online to WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. The budget for Tennessee Governor Bill Lee's last year in office will be much tighter than in years previous. But as WPLN's Mariana Bacchiao reports from last night's State of the State address, Lee will still be advocating for expanding his signature school voucher program. In his 8th and final State of the State address, Governor Lee unveiled his budget to applause from within the gallery and jeers just outside of it, where protesters gathered to demonstrate against immigration enforcement activity in Tennessee. For this year's budget, Lee has focused on expanding nuclear energy, rural health care, and his signature school voucher program. Immigration was notably absent from Lee's speech, although it was a centerpiece of his address last year and continues to be a hot topic in the legislature this year. Mariana Bacchiao, WPLN News. Well, healthcare was a big issue both before and during the State of the State address. Physicians and other healthcare advocates from the group Protect My Care showed up in their white coats to protest. They pointed to a number of indicators that show the state is not doing well where health is concerned. Tennessee is currently fighting for money under the Trump administration's Rural Health Transformation Program. In its application for $1 billion in funding, state officials said they'll need to make some big policy changes. And Lee dived into those changes. That's not normal in typical healthcare policy rhetoric. Health reporter Catherine Sweeney explained in a post-speech live discussion here on WPLN.
I think one of the things that was the most surprising to me was that it was so policy focused. You know, in politics, we hear about healthcare all the time. Maybe, premiums. There's a lot of stuff about drug costs, and a lot of it is always about money, but it's very rarely about actual changes to how healthcare works. And he talked about that on two fronts. Both of them are a little bit hard to explain, so bear with me. But one is scope of practice, is the term that you'll hear a lot this year. And the other is certificate of need.
Basically, Lee wants to support providers like physician's assistants and nurse practitioners to be able to work on their own without a supervising doctor, especially in rural areas. And he wants to get rid of a controversial application process for providers to open new hospitals and clinics. Both of those pitches have their opponents and supporters, and they'll be sure to stir up conversations at the State House this spring. Nashville's mayor is taking action to hold the Nashville Electric Service accountable for its response to the ice storm. Mayor Freddie O'Connell signed an order yesterday to create a commission to review storm preparations and response. O'Connell says the commission will have 9 members, including 7 community leaders and experts in utilities and emergency communications.
The commission will have the power to conduct hearings and request assistance from the Metro Auditor. They'll have investigative powers, including the ability to compel the attendance of witnesses and the production of records pertinent to the investigation of any hearing, and to administer oaths to witnesses. The
commission is required to deliver findings within 6 months. Meanwhile, the Federal Emergency Management Agency is taking the unusual step of sending emergency funds up front to Tennessee, Mississippi, and Louisiana to recover from the winter storm. Typically, FEMA operates by reimbursing state and local governments for the cost of recovery after the fact. The agency announced Friday it would expedite a combined $11 million to help states manage the immediate aftermath because of the severity of the storm. Tennessee is receiving $3.75 million. A release from the agency says it's an effort to modernize, delivering faster, more flexible resources. The funds can go towards efforts like clearing debris, operating shelters, deploying generators, and emergency operations centers. More water pipes are expected to burst across Nashville this week as the city thaws out from the ice storm. Soils are shifting from the bloat and contraction, and that moderate ground movement can break a water pipe, whether it's old or new. Will Dodd, the assistant director of Metro Codes, says that people should expect more impacts this week.
As the temperatures rise, for us, the emergency is not over. In fact, as the ground shifts, we anticipate an increase in the number of water main breaks.
The city's dealing with 19 active and possible water main breaks today. Since the start of the ice storm, Dodd said the city has received 15,000 calls related to water. The city has already fixed 70 water main breaks and has issued 1,000 work orders for what he called water meter work. He says the city has enough capacity to quickly respond to pipe breaks as they happen. Kids in Nashville are returning to school today. Last week's ice storm left more than 70 school buildings without power. Superintendent Adrian Battle thanked NES linemen for working through the night to restore electricity. Battle says when students return to class, all schools will be safe and warm. Staff returned yesterday to check on their classrooms and prepare for students on Tuesday. Battle says she has a plan in case bad weather hits Nashville again.
If schools are required to close again due to weather, and if remote learning is a viable option, that is the approach we would likely take. However, as we experienced this past week, widespread power outages can make remote learning infeasible. In those circumstances, we may need to request a waiver from the state to avoid extending the school year.
Other mid-state school districts are mixed today on whether to remain closed, reopen for a normal day, or open with a delay.
You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org.
Tens of thousands of Nashvillians lost electricity in the ice storm. Yet the honky-tonks of Nashville's Lower Broadway district played on. In a story that first aired on NPR All Things Considered, Justin Barney reports.
One place that's had power all week is Nashville's iconic honky-tonk district, Lower Broadway. The neon lights of Kid Rock's Honky Tonk and Tootsie's stayed on because the power lines are buried underground, safe from ice. As Broadway has grown as a tourist destination, more locals work on Broadway, but less locals hang out there. Though Robert's Western World bartender Conway Dickinson, a.k.a. Cadillac Conway, noted a different crowd this week.
We had a lot of local people in here whose power was out, and we're glad that we were open and the heat was on, and we're serving warm bologna sandwiches.
That's because locals took up the rooms usually booked by tourists downtown.
It's just been a lot of people from the areas where they're out of power. They're in these hotels.
That's Teeter Brennan, a bouncer at Alan Jackson's Good Time Bar, across the street from where Paige Cross works.
It's cool to kind of see the people that we live around out here.
There's still a lot of tourists.
We're from Chicago,
West Texas,
Oregon, Iowa,
London in the UK,
just north of Anchorage, Alaska.
They help keep the music economy going through this tough time for Nashville. Scott Boyes, a syrup harvester from Vermont, was committed to this trip.
We had too much invested to say, let's just turn around and go back home, right? It's like, we've weathered the storms in Vermont. So it's like, we're gonna take Nashville in the weather. It is what it is, you know?
Tourists and locals were going out of their way to support those working on Lower Broadway, says musician Matt Berninger.
People were so happy to be out of the house, man. And there's a lot of people that they didn't cancel their flights. So they came here and they absolutely had a blast, man. Like, we're tipping the bands extra. That's what they said.
Walking downtown was legendary mandolin player Sam Bush. He also lost power.
The people that come here help those of us that play music make a living.
Right
so
on.
Thanks for coming to Nashville.
He was grateful to see Lower Broadway beating on through the storm. For NPR News, I'm Justin Barney in Nashville.
I met her at the Mercado. She was buying avocados. Then she really turned me on. She reached for my pepper, and I grabbed her tomatoes. I knew it wouldn't be very long.
We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcasting app. And thanks so much to all of you who've left 5 stars, a thumbs up, or a review in your app of choice. A little bit of love really does tell the algorithms that more people should hear about us. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can make a donation at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one. And we'll catch back up tomorrow.